Welcome to Suffolk Matters, where all of Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News, opinions, and insights you won't hear anywhere else. Filling in for AME President Dan Leveler, AME Executive Vice President Tom Moran.
And good morning, everyone. This is Tom Moran, the Executive Vice President of Suffolk County AME, filling in for Dan Leveler today. I'm very proud to be joined today by New York State Assembly member Mike Durso. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Tom. How are you today?
Wonderful. Good to see you again.
Yes.
I know you've been on the show before, but good to have you live in the studio.
Yeah, last time was COVID. We were on the phone, but happy to be in person with everybody.
A lot has happened since then, but let's let our listeners know a little bit about your background and how you became the Assemblyman from the 9th District.
Okay. Well, my name is Mike Durso. I'm the Assembly member from the 9th District. I grew up in Massapequa Park here on Long Island. Prior to being elected, I worked for Town of Oyster Bay Sanitation Department for about 15 years, and I worked a second job at night at Hofstra University as a public safety officer. When the opportunity arose, it was something I jumped at. I had the opportunity to serve my community, be more involved, and protect those and especially the workforce that I came from. I thought was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. I was lucky enough to be elected 2 years ago and hoping to be reelected this year in November.
And of course, something that's very important to us all the time is having people from labor.
Yes.
And you were a CSEA member. Tell us about your experience of how being a union member has transcended into you running for office and being elected for office.
Okay. Yes, I was a member of CSEA with the Town of Oyster Bay. I was also a Teamster at Hofstra. So obviously, and then growing up in a family that's very labor friendly, to say the least, was something, again, it was very important to me. I served as a shop steward with CSEA when I was in the sanitation department, also on the negotiating committee with the Teamsters last contract at Hofstra. So again, it was being able to represent those people from where I came from. They're just hardworking, everyday people. We're not rich. We don't have 3-4 houses. We're not driving Ferraris. What we do is go to work every day, trying to provide for our families, and being able to go to Albany and bring that kind of dedication, understanding to Albany to be able to bring hopefully results home for everybody was so important, and I've been able to thankfully do that.
So like you said, the name Durso is known throughout labor, but not only that, your wife serves as a trustee for the village of Massapequa Park.
Yes.
And as well as your father being president of Local 338. So I'm sure you get a lot of input just around the dinner table or at holidays about what you should be doing in Albany.
Sure. Well, yeah, you do. Actually, I get more from my wife than I do from my father because, let's be honest, she's the boss. But being involved in a family, obviously, and being part of a family that my wife serves as a village trustee, as you said, my father being Long Island Federation of Labor president, 338 president. Again, it's all about community, right? It's about being able to give our kids a great future, being able to, obviously, in the labor movement, being able to give them good paying jobs, giving people a reason and a chance to stay here on Long Island, afford a house, be able to provide for their families is so important. That was instilled in me as a young person. My mother was a small business owner, and she also worked for the town. So I get both aspects of the union side of it, which is so important to me, and then also the small business side of it, which was so important to me growing up with my mother, and hard work. And that's where I think they both combine. You know, when you work in the restaurant industry, you know, the saying "custom is always right." That was true. My mother, would always say, if they don't come in to buy a hamburger, if they don't come in to, it's less money in our pocket. It's less food on our table, essentially. So you have to treat people right. They're expecting a product. They're paying for a product. They want a good product. And I take that into public office also. People pay taxes. That pays my salary. My job is to do a good job for them, to be available to them, to speak to them, to be at events, to be seen, to be within the district and bring their concerns up to Albany and hopefully get results for them. That's my job. Hopefully I'm able to do that.
Well, you've been very out there, and we see you at events, and obviously, again, coming from your background, you used to be out on the street all the time and interacting with people with all your jobs that you have done. So January is going to be. It's been 2 years since you were first elected to the Assembly. Talk about some of the differences this time as opposed to last time. Obviously, last time you were running middle of COVID or sort of the arc of COVID, so I'm sure that made a lot harder for you as somebody running for the first time, as far as knocking on doors or having events. But what's changed this year, and also you also have 2 years experience behind you that you can tout on your record, so to speak.
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously, it's much different than 2 years ago. Again, like as you said, knocking on doors, being able to be at events, to actually meet people, see people. I've spoke to people on the phone or on Zoom that I've only just seen in person within the past couple of weeks. They said, "Oh, we've all seen each other on Zoom. Now we get to see each other in person." So it's almost like relearning people and relearning the job as you go over the past 2 years. But I think it's been great. I think people are obviously getting more comfortable with it. And then being up in Albany for the first time, where half the chamber was empty, people would either stay in their office, people weren't traveling up, and now even at the end of session this past year, it got a little bit more open and people felt more comfortable. So being able to have that interaction with other members in the assembly, whether it's someone from Buffalo or someone from New York City, was so important to actually get results and actually get things done. Because talking on the phone, as you know, or seeing someone on Zoom is so different than being able to actually talk to them in person. I think we're past that now. I hope to, this year if I get reelected, when we go back up to Albany, you're able to sit in front of someone face to face. It's a lot harder to tell somebody no face to face than it is over the phone. So it's been a relearning process essentially, but one that I've enjoyed.
Yeah, and I think that you've been out even in Albany when you've been meeting with different committees or being in your office, or I know I've tracked you down on the streets of Albany when
Sure.
We've had issues, but always very receptive and always have the open ear to labor. So those are the most important things and some of your best qualities, I could personally say.
Thank you.
So since that election, what do you feel your top accomplishment has been in the Assembly?
Well, top accomplishment would be tough. I think, especially this year, right at the end of session, there's probably 1,100 bills that we do throughout the year, and naturally we wait to the end because that's state government. We went to the last 2 days to get about 600 of them done, and things will fall by the wayside. I mean, there was actually a bill that Representative Assemblymember Steve Stern actually had that we were able to push and get to the floor, which was the blue. I'm going to screw the name up. I think it's the blue light bill or the blue response bill. In other words, it's a mechanism that's put in place for if any of our law enforcement are shot or hurt on the job or anything like that, that there's an alert that goes out throughout the radio and the any other uses that the police have to be able to get information out to their members that there is a police officer shot, there's a police officer down, member down, so they can get there on time in a quick fashion. That was something that could have fell by the wayside. And if you really think about it, that's important, right? I mean, our men and women in law enforcement are very important to all of us, and they protect our families, our streets, our children, our family members. It's so important to be able to have something like that where it's quick reaction, we can get to them and help them. That's a bill that probably, it could have fallen by the wayside. So being able to be in person in Albany, be able to literally walk around the chamber, speak to other members on both sides of the aisle to say, hey, this is really important. We got to get this done, and really get it done at the 11th hour was important. I mean, that's just going off the top of my head, something that was, I think, an accomplishment on both sides. The bill itself, which I appreciate Steve Stern putting in, and also getting it done, brought to the floor, was so important and at such a late stage of the game.
Sure, and that's something that people would think about, our listeners say, that's a no-brainer. How does it just not get done?
Right.
Why is there even a discussion? But the whole process, how it works through, like you just said, doesn't just go, it's brought up and, hey, let's vote on it. There's discussion, there's meetings, there's committee meetings beforehand. A lot really goes into it. And of course, if you're the person signing that bill, you have your investment into it. But you have to get everybody to believe in that investment and show them every single person that's voting why this is a good bill.
Correct. And I think it's so, again, that in-person aspect of it and being able to talk to people, because again, that was being carried by a member on the other side of the aisle from where I sit. But it's a good bill. It was a bill that made sense, is common sense. So being able to be in person and be able to talk to other members on the other side of the aisle. Listen, we don't all hate each other every day. That doesn't happen. But we need to be able to talk to each other and say, hey, listen, you might have missed this, or you might not have seen this, or I need help from you being able to, and whether it's this bill or talking about other ones, I need you to help me. I need you to go to some of your other members and say, hey, listen, we need to get this bill to the floor. This is something that's important. It's going to help many people. That's what being in person does. I mean, and that's the big difference between the end of session this past year and then obviously my first year session where nobody was in the chamber. You don't have that one-on-one conversation. You can't reach somebody. Or even as something as going out to dinner with them or seeing them at the local restaurant, having a drink with them. It actually helps you interact with them on an everyday basis, just like we're having a conversation now. That's how things actually really get done. More stuff gets done at the local place having a bowl of pasta or a slice of pizza than it does on the chamber floor, because people need to know where you're coming from.
Sure, and that's the only way you can do it is to do it, have in-person conversations. Like you said, you can't do things like that on Zoom. You can't build relationships like that. But it's important for our elected officials that do get things done, that are able to do the things that you're doing, crossing the aisle, so to speak, and making sure they understand. Because, again, that's a two-way street. There's going to be times when they ask you for help, and it doesn't matter what letters behind your name. Sometimes it matters what is the most important thing for the people that we're serving as elected officials. Correct?
Absolutely. Again, I always say it's listen. I have an R next to my name. I'm a Republican, but when I go up to Albany, and we're not running, and we're doing what we have to do, I represent roughly about 135,000 people. They're not all Republican. They're not all Democrat. They're not all independent. Some of them don't care about politics at all, which I didn't either before getting elected. I really didn't. It was all about, how is this affecting my family? How does this affect my day-to-day? How does this affect my safety? How does this affect my wallet? Can I go to work? Can I afford to live here? That's what they want. If I walk door to door now, the issues haven't changed from 2 years ago to 10 years ago when I was walking with other candidates. It's the same thing. My taxes are too high. I want to feel safe in my home. I want a good paying job. I want my kids to go to school. I want my kids to be safe. That's it. I mean, it's really as I always say, the kitchen table issues have never changed. And I don't think they will. It's just a level of what level of safety do they feel? What level of help do they feel like they're getting from elected officials about their jobs and good paying jobs and more available jobs to them? I think those are so important, and it's the same issues all the time. It's just a matter of what results are we producing as elected officials for the people we represent.
And you make a good point that there are people that live in your district that not necessarily are the same party as you.
Correct.
But they're going to come to you with their problems. They're going to come to you with their issues. They're going to tell you, sometimes it might be one-sided. They just are complaining about something that maybe doesn't really affect them. But, I'm going to go complain to my assemblyman. I'm going to, that's how it works. But you do have to do what you've been doing, and that's that open door and listen to their problems. And again, there's times when there's points that come out that maybe you hadn't thought about, and it does pertain to your district and getting the job done for that.
Correct. I mean, you can't think of everything. Anybody that tells you they're an expert on everything is obviously lying. I like going into everything with an open mind. I hate the word constituent. People have heard me say it all the time. I hate that word. It sounds so impersonal. Any resident that lives in my district that comes to me with an issue, a complaint, may sit on a different side than me, maybe have a different view than me. I always listen to them because, like you said, there's things that come up, whether it's why they think that, they might have the wrong information. I might not know all the information. We might just disagree on the issue completely. But the fact of the matter is they have an issue. So how can we solve it? Where can we meet in the middle to solve the issue? That's my job. That's what I get paid to do, is to help everyone within the district and actually throughout the state. That's our job as elected officials. It's not about just helping one party or one set of people because they voted for you. You have to help everybody. I tell everybody when I walk up to the door, knock on the door, Doesn't matter who's running for president. Doesn't matter who's running for this. I'm at your door right now. I'm the one knocking on your door. Tell me what you need, how I can help you, and we'll figure it out. And we'll just have having a discussion. I know that's like a novel idea now. Everybody wants to just go on Twitter or social media or whatever and just put their ideas out and having a discussion. But let's talk about it and figure we're probably not far apart. It's just how we get there might differ.
Neighbor sounds much better than constituent.
Yeah, I hate the word constituent.
Plus, it's hard to say.
It is. It will tongue tie you every now and then.
So at the beginning of your term, the Assembly asked you to sit on the Committee on Labor.
Yes.
So coming from this vast labor background, what did that mean to you?
It was obviously very important. Again, being a former shop steward with the town of Oyster Bay and obviously sticking up for worker rights, making sure they follow the contract, making sure that we also worked with government and the elected officials to make sure that the job got done for the residents of the town and also the protections for our workers is paramount. So I think being able to bring that experience there, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that have done it, but being able to bring that there from my side of the aisle and being on the labor board was so important because I want to protect all workers. I want workers' rights. I want people to be able to get fair pay. Like I said, we need people to be able to stay here on Long Island, have good paying jobs, and understand that we're going to stay here. We're going to fight for this state. I want my kids to be here. I want to be here. But you can't do that if you can't afford to live here. So we have to have worker standards. You have to have safety. And again, people may live upstate, have different ideas on what labor means and what safety means and different jobs and where they come from than we do here on Long Island. Long Island's its own little world, as I always say. It really is. And we have to protect Long Islanders. That's my job. So being able to be on that labor board, a commission, to make sure that, again, workers have safety, workers have proper pay, workers have a voice. I could do that from them. It's not very different than being a shop steward. I just get to do it on a bigger level now.
Important part of the labor movement always has been getting young people involved. And everybody has heard the stories, whether your grandfather was a bricklayer and then you were a bricklayer. And you could do that with the trades. It's so important that the young people get involved. Some of the work that you've done has been securing money for the BOCES programs. Not only I want to talk about what that means to you, but what the effect it has not only on the infrastructure of your district and the island as well, but to just what avenues we've been taking to get young people involved in the trades.
Okay. I mean, personally, I've always said I went to BOCES. I went through the BOCES program in high school through the carpentry program. It was one of the best experiences of my life. The unfortunate part is my mother had to fight to get me into that program because it's not available to everybody. They're limited in the amount of kids that they could put in these programs from the schools. And BOCES isn't just, it's not just even the trades, as we say, right? With air quotes I'm doing here on the radio. But it's cosmetology, it's computer science, it's police science now. They have EMT programs, small animal care. And then there's the trades, the electricians, the HVAC mechanics, carpentry, the list goes on and on. Being able to get young people into those trades now to whether for multiple reasons. One is they can learn a skill now when they're in high school, right? Two is they also might learn, I don't like doing this. I don't like physical labor. I don't want to do this. And then they say, okay, I'm going to go on to the normal, typical 4-year school. They are gaining skills at a young age to understand entrepreneurship. Maybe want to open up their own business. Maybe they want to go work for one of the trades unions. I mean, when I was younger, you didn't see in Newsday and the Post and these things, union painters wanted, union carpenters wanted, union electricians wanted. You couldn't get those jobs. I mean, I was looking for those jobs and couldn't get them. So now you see them because we're falling behind on training our young people, this is my opinion, on these trades, and we're going to need them. We're going to need them going forward. I mean, you have auto mechanics now that go through these BOCES programs that it's mostly computers, right? It's not the old turning the wrench all the time. And I mean, for certain things, obviously it is, but a lot of it's computerized and you need to be trained on it. And they're coming out making $100,000 a year, going to work for these, whether it's a Mercedes, a BMW, Ford, they're all electronic now. Everybody they're coming out and they're going to be able to have good paying jobs. That is a good paying job, but they still call you a mechanic. So we need to take that stigma away also of working with your hands is bad And then going forward in the future, whether you want to talk about electric cars, whether you want to talk about EV charging stations, whether you want to talk about wind energy, who's fixing them? Who's putting them together? Who's doing the maintenance on them? We need to train the future now for later. Again, good paying jobs, reasons to stay here on Long Island and in New York State, and being able to train the future, because if we don't have them, we could do all the wind energy we want, all electric cars you want. Roads need to be fixed constantly, no matter what anybody says. We need to fix them. We need to fix the bridges. These are constant maintenance that need to be done. People are always going to need windows put in. People are always going to need to, have their plumbing fixed. If you don't believe in HVAC mechanics, ask that in the summer when your AC goes down. I mean, those are important trades that we can now teach going forward, and they have the opportunity. There's a bill in now that's called the All Means All bill that hasn't got much traction, which is driving me crazy, and it's something I push all the time. It's every kid in every high school will have the opportunity to test to get into a BOCES program. Why is that hard to understand? I mean, that's so important. You're giving them the opportunity, not just going into bang nails anymore. You could go in and, like I said, go into computer science or small animal care or cosmetology or whatever. You could become a baker. My daughter always says she wants to be a baker, so she wants to go to BOCES. I mean, these are trades. These are good paying jobs for the future, and we need our kids, my kids who are 10 and 6, to have a future, to be able to have these skills coming out of high school to say, hey, listen, I want to go to a 4-year school. I don't want to bake. I don't want to do carpentry. I'm going to go to a 4-year school instead of saying I'm going to go to a 4-year college, have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 worth of loans, come out and go, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself now. But they might have went to a BOCES program and said, now I'm going to go to a 2-year college. I'm going to say, hey, listen, I like this trade. I'm going to go learn more about this and start their future a little early, not to become an adult. We don't want them to grow up too fast, but it gives them options. It opens their mind to other options. And this is for every school, these bills. This is for every community. That's real equity. That's really affecting people in their homes because it's giving them a trade to start early. Sorry, I get a little passionate about that one.
No, we're all passionate about labor, and any movement forward is something that's good for not only us, but for our future kids, grandkids. We want to make everything better on the island, and union work is a big part of that. That greater movement, the labor movement, not just across the country, and unionizing, kind of in your backyard. You had the first Starbucks that unionized in Massapequa.
Yep.
Got to be proud of that point. But
sure.
What's your thoughts on the increasing of unionizing, not traditional, what we know of labor unions, police unions, those type of things.
Right.
Now we're going into different type of businesses, but they're seeing the value of what a union does, what the benefits are, what the protections are. I think that being right in your district there, is this something you see going out further in the state, in the country, and the process that they got to it?
Yeah, I absolutely see it going further, and it's exactly what you said. It's protections for the worker, right? It's seeing the benefit of doing it together, right? So the more people you have on your side, the bigger voice you have, the more you can get done. They're not asking for anything outrageous. They just want to be treated well, right? Have proper working, like everybody does, right? That everybody goes to work, wants to be able to work their 9-to-5 job, be able to get a lunch break, be able to get proper pay, benefits for their families. I mean, whatever industry you're in, you want to feel appreciated, which is number one. Feel like you're part of something, that you have, for lack of a better word, I'm trying to think of one and I can't. You want to feel like you're part of that business, that you want to feel like you're part of a group that is doing something better for others. They're doing that now by banding together, forming that union to make sure they get proper wages, proper pay, again, safety protocols, as we always talk about. I think that's huge, and it's going to expand because people get taken advantage of, right? Whether it's when we talk about our workforce that are working out on the roads, or you talk about your workforce that's working in a Starbucks and making coffees. What's the difference? They all have families to take care of. They all have bills to pay. You want to make sure that they're paid properly, taken care of properly, proper safety protocols, good benefits, good paying jobs. It's not a lot to ask. No one's asking for anything crazy. And if you want to stop them from unionizing, we have a problem with that, obviously.
Let's stay on the labor topic for a minute. Something that AME's had a priority in Albany for several years is reforming the Tier 6 pension system. Majority of our members, I'm sure you coming from your work in the sanitation world, got a lot of young kids that joined, started their Tier 6. We know it's a priority. Moving forward, 2023, you're reelected. What can we expect on Tier 6 legislation?
Well, what do you expect from me, or what do we actually expect from Tier 6 legislation? Because it might be two different things. We're hoping not. Obviously, I'll be fighting because, again, listen, as everybody said, with Tier 6 this past year and with the legislation bringing it from 10 to 5, 10 years down to 5 years, as far as putting it for your retirement and stuff like that, it's a great start, but everybody got very excited about it. I have to tell you, I wasn't. Because, again, coming from where I come from, and I don't want to speak for everybody that are, every industry, but if sanitation department, right, you can't retire till you're 62, right, under the current provisions of Tier 6. That's crazy. You're going to run behind a garbage truck at 62 years old? I'm 42. I already have 2 slip discs, a herniated disc. I get shots in my back. You get knee problems, shoulder problems, and any, especially for some of the physical trades, it's an impossibility. They're not going to make it that far. So when you have a kid come in, think about it, at 20 years old, right? Man, woman, and they come into an industry, you're going to work for 42 years in that industry, especially if it's something that's hard on your body. I mean, you have to be kidding me. I mean, that's crazy. There's got to be some kind of meet in the middle way to do this. I'll be happy when there's real Tier 6 reform, which brings it back down. I mean, I was always a Tier 4 person. I don't see what the problem was with that to begin with.
Yeah, myself included, Tier 4. And part of the other problem is now you're having not only these people work longer amount of years, especially in a tough physical job like sanitation, but you also have people working side by side that are Tier 4 and Tier 6.
Correct, yeah.
And that just causes a natural, I don't want to say a natural disparity between them feelings, but, they're both doing the same job. They both should be, have the same retirement. I agree with you that we put a little Band-Aid maybe on this last year, but as well as I do, there's so much more that can be done and needs to be done. And I know somebody with your background and knowing you personally that you're going to be somebody that's fighting to get this changed and get it to where it needs to be. And also showing people what, and informing them just like
that's
what it's supposed to be.
That's the big thing, right? So when you go in and you're talking about these things, and whether it comes through the labor committee or it's going to go through public employees or whatever committees it's going to go through, being able to have certain people in those committees that have done those jobs, that have been part of those municipalities and doing those jobs every day, they can give you a different aspect from someone that may not understand it, that may not either care or understand where you're coming from or know how it really works. Again, if you look at someone that's coming in right now, and I'm just using sanitation as an example, I said, that's 20 years old, and you're going to jump on and off a truck for 42 years. If you think that they're not going to, you're going to end up spending more money in injuries, whether it's, again, knee surgeries, shoulder surgeries. I see it all the time. Guys missing fingers, this, that, and the other thing. The payouts from workman's comp alone aren't even going to be enough to make the difference. Again, just bring it back down to a normal way. Again, Tier 4, I could retire at 55, technically. Again, I'll leave that one alone. I don't want to get too crazy, but again, work until you're 55 again, and an understanding that you're only going to get so much in your pension. You're only going to get a certain percentage. I get it, but we have to weigh the good and the bad, the negative and the positives. If you have people that are working for 42 years, but for 20 of those years are out on workman's comp or getting settlements for injuries or having surgeries, or then you have to move them into a different department, because they can't physically do those jobs anymore. What are we doing? I mean, common sense goes out the window once again.
And you make a good point about your retirement. What's your quality of life after doing that job 42 years?
Yeah.
And not only that, it's not doing it every day on a nice sunny day and perfect conditions where you're not battling the weather.
It's the sunny days you don't remember.
Yeah.
It's it's the days when you're running in the cold rain and the snow and the heat, and those days they beat you up, they wear you out, and that's just one industry. I mean, you have people in many industries work for many municipalities that have the same issues, and again, work until you're 62. Again, and maybe in some industries it's okay, it's fine. But again, we need to reform Tier 6. I mean, everybody can get up, and they were very excited, and they're clapping their hands about Tier 6. I wasn't. It wasn't enough.
I think we have the same feeling on it. Some of the other things, state budget, CHIPS funding, a lot of infrastructure, obviously, LIE getting repaved, and many other. Yeah, I only have to take it 2 exits a day, but it was pretty bad. It was really a bad situation driving on the LA, but a lot of that work has got done. I know there's continued to go the cement portion out past 64, but that's good paying union jobs. It's good, improves the life of our citizens out here on Long Island. Projects in your district, how do you prioritize these type of projects? How does it affect the residents of Suffolk County, of those of your district that you do represent, and what are the things that you hear priority besides the roads that the infrastructure is going to help out getting done?
Like we said before, everybody starts with roads, right? Because everybody gets out on the road, drives, they go into Southern State, they take that awful exit ramp over by Bethpage Parkway where you feel like your car's going to fall apart. I know everybody, I get it too. And they're starting to do the exit ramps over there, and they do them in sections, and it's a good start. But again, I think what we really need to do, and obviously pushing for CHIPS funding is always important, and like you said, good paying union jobs, but we need to stay on top of this. The fact of the matter is that these roads are falling apart. It's not new. You don't need to be in government. You don't need to be someone that does excavating or paving to understand that Route 109 has been bad for years now. What takes so long to get to, what really gets us to the point where we go, okay, it's really bad now. They need to be on some kind of timetable, understanding that we need people to come out, check them. Again, that's our job, right? Every day is you as a taxpayer are paying for these roads to be fixed. You got to get to work, your kids to school, you run the supermarket, and then you're driving down 109 and there's a pothole that you can lose a child in. That's not good for anybody. That's definitely not good for your car. It's going to cost you money in the end. We need to stay on top of these improvements. Now, again, I'm glad to see things are starting to get done. And as I mentioned, the 109, if anybody's listening, that whole thing is going to start in 2023, apparently. But they've started to, redo some of the road and fill it and, keep it, again, like you said before, put a Band-Aid on things. But we need to stay on top of these things because, again, the residents' quality of life should be paramount to us, whether it's safety, whether it's roads, whether it's infrastructure. And, again, the fact that we need to push to get funding to keep bridges up and running, that's a safety issue. I mean, we shouldn't have to go push for CHIPS funding every year. It should just happen because we need to be able to keep our bridges, roads, and tunnels safe and well working for our people that need to get to work every day, our union members that are going to work every day, and our families and friends that are taking their kids to school and going shopping. It's again, common sense, everyday use of those roads. They need to be up and running.
I don't think it's always understood unless you do have some type of labor background or some type of trades background that if you do just a little bit of maintenance every single year, and we don't always do that, right? We sometimes
things get put off. Sure.
Gets put off, and other things take priority. But doing a little maintenance on certain projects is all of a sudden not going to be a $1 trillion project down the road when it could just be maintained, whether it be the buildings, roads, street lights, any type of projects like that.
It would actually save you money. It's like going to the doctor. If you don't go to the doctor for 5 years, 10 years, and then when everything really starts to bother you, go in, you have problems. Like you got to go through all sorts of tests. But if you go for your yearly checkup, it's less invasive and it's less time consuming. Let's just do that. Let's have our yearly checkups on our roads and bridges so we could stay on top of it. And like you said, do that little bit of maintenance, save taxpayer money. We'll keep people working. That's definite because obviously the maintenance needs to be done. But we keep people safe and let them get to work on time. It would be nice.
Yeah, we always want to keep people safe, but always want to keep them working as well. Election day is right around the corner. Again, nature of the beast. You're up for re-election. 2 years does fly by. What do you expect moving forward, your priorities going into your next cycle? And what are you hearing on the campaign trail from people? Again, as we spoke earlier, now that you're getting to see a lot more people and be in person.
I think, like I said before, the things that we talk about now, they're exacerbated, but they're really those kitchen table issues. Again, they want to feel safe walking down the street. Safety this year right now is a priority. Again, our union members going to work and having good paying jobs and fair wages and making sure that they're working is great. But when they come home, they should feel safe, right? And again, making sure our police are safe, being able to make sure they're able to do their job. They're union members also. We want to make sure that they're safe and they're able to do their job. People going to the supermarket and, groceries are costing you $50, $60, $70 more than they were. If you're on a fixed income, that's hurting people. Our seniors are hurting. God knows what's going to happen this year with heating oil. When we come into the winter months. I mean, those are the concerns I'm hearing from people. And again, they're things that need to be addressed in Albany. So again, as someone said to me once upstate, elections have consequences, and they certainly do. Hopefully this year, listen, everybody needs to get back to the center of the table, say, what do we need to do for our residents, the people we represent? We got to be able to keep them safe, let them get to work on time, let them get to work safely, make sure our kids have a good education and a future. That's the basis of what our job is supposed to be. Take your advocacy and what you may think all the time is best and bring it to the table, and we can all figure it out. But if you're just going to go one way with it and not worry about the everyday person and the everyday middle class, working class person, I mean, we might not be able to talk because you're not going to understand where I'm coming from. But those are the people that I represent. Those are the people here on Long Island. We need to be able to take care of our families. We need to be able to make sure they're safe. Those are the things I'm hearing every day. And it's not any different. It's just now they say with a little bit more vigor that they want to feel safe in their homes. And unfortunately, some people don't.
How can people learn more about your candidacy or get involved and help you on your reelection?
Please, by all means, you could call my my office again for any of our residents that have any questions about anything going on in the district. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram. Durso for New York is my website. All my information's up there. I'm kind of an open book. You're more than welcome to call me. I don't really have a lot of secrets, and I don't really have a agenda. I never have. Like I said, I'm just a sanitation worker that was lucky enough to get elected and be able to represent his area. I do it proudly, and hopefully I'll be able to do it for another 2 years going forward.
Well, you've been doing a great job, and we look forward to seeing you back in Albany. My guest today has been Assemblyman Mike Durso of the New York State Assembly. I hope everybody has a good day. Thank you again for joining me, Mike, and good luck on your reelection.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.